The Denver Nuggets trading Michael Porter Jr. to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. Brooklyn also receiving an unprotected 2032 first-round pick in the deal. MPJ has battled injuries throughout his career in Denver. Helped the Nuggets win a title in 2023. This past season averaged 18 points in 77 games. Jordan Clarkson plans on signing with the Knicks once he clears waivers. Agreed to a buyout with the Jazz on Monday. He averaged at least 15 points per game in 7 straight seasons. However, he played in a career-low 37 games this past season due to plantar fasciitis in his left foot. D'Angelo Russell agreed to a 2-year deal worth $13 million with the Mavs. The trade reunites Russell with Anthony Davis, who played with him in L.A. D'Lo averaged nearly 13 points, 6 assists per game last season with the Lakers and the Nets. Rockets have been busy. Free agent forward Dorian Finney-Smith agreed to a 4-year, $53 million deal. Clint Capella heading back to Houston on a 3-year, $21.5 million deal. Capella spent the first 6 years of his career in Houston before being traded to Atlanta. It adds to a busy offseason already for Houston, who traded for Kevin Durant, signed Jabari Smith to his 5-year, $122 million rookie extension on Sunday. The Grizzlies had a busy first day of free agency. Jaren Jackson Jr. expected to sign a 5-year, $240 million max extension with the team. That's according to an ESPN report. Jackson, a 2-time All-Star and former NBA Defensive Player of the Year. The team also signed Santi Aldama to a 3-year, $52.5 million deal. Aldama had a career high in points, rebounds, assists, and steals per game this season. Not done. Ty Jerome agreed to a 3-year, $28 million deal with the Grizzlies. Jerome had a breakout year for the Cavs, averaging 12.5 points and 3 assists per game off the bench. And for more, welcome in CBS Sports NBA writer Sam Quinn and CBS Sports basketball analyst Tim Doyle. Nuggets trade MPJ to the Nets for Cam Johnson. Sam, what's your reaction to this deal for Denver and Brooklyn?
Oh, I love it for both sides. This is about as consummate a win-win trade as you're going to see in any offseason. Brooklyn, it's obvious. They're just trying to take on a bad contract, get a draft pick for it. Nikola Jokic will be in his late 30s when this pick conveys in 2032. Looks like it'll be pretty valuable at that point. But the Nuggets don't care about what happens when they're after Nikola Jokic. They have the best player in the world right now. Their goal is to compete while he's still in his prime, and I think they've made a pretty significant upgrade here. Cam Johnson better on the ball than Michael Porter Jr. Both of them good shooters. But the big upgrade here is that they're going to unlock the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. They're going to add more talent in free agency now. They save about $18 million. They're going to pour that back into the roster, fix that bench.
Well, it's about making shots in the postseason, and Michael Porter Jr. in 7 games against OKC, because it was a 7-game series Denver took him to, he averaged 7 points and shot 25% from 3. Hakeem, you know this had to be tough for Denver. The Cronkies, the Missouri ties, Michael Porter Jr. is one of them. He was one of their favorites. But he was not getting it done, and at the end of the day, you know, this comes down to money, as Sam pointed out, and they're obviously saving some, as well as getting someone who's a proven shooter. 40% from 3, has made big shots in the postseason throughout his career, and I think he's an excellent fit. But the biggest thing is he gave Denver some flexibility to make some moves, because right now it's all about winning right now with the Joker.
Yeah, and it's all about winning right now for the Houston Rockets. Busy offseason, traded for Kevin Durant, kept Fred VanVleet. Jabari Smith agreed to a deal with Dorian Finney-Smith and Clint Capella. Sam, clearly Houston going all in. How are you evaluating the moves they made here in the offseason and on the first day of free agency?
Yeah, they've had a great offseason so far, right? I think we have to start with Oklahoma City as the favorite in the West, but Houston is clearly number 2 now. They've replaced Dillon Brooks with Dorian Finney-Smith, got another really good 3-and-D wing. Kevin Durant speaks for himself, one of the greatest players of all time. They didn't need Clint Capella, but they had the money, so it's almost like, why not? You get a little bit of injury insurance against Steven Adams, who's older, who's had some injury issues in the past. Now you have 3 centers for 2 slots. Maybe you mix and match based on matchup. Maybe you play some of them together. I love what Houston's done so far. It's been an incredible day for them.
Tim, you also love it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no doubt about it. Look, Dorian Finney-Smith doesn't even crack the starting 5. As I believe right now, when Fred VanVleet is your 4th best player on offense and maybe even your 5th best player, you have a legit squad. Houston needed a closer. They picked up one of the greatest scorers in the history of the NBA in Kevin Durant. You know, normally at the end of games, it was like, oh, Houston, we have a problem. We have no closer. They don't have a problem anymore, Gabe. They got Kevin Durant. They added to their bench. Right now, they are my favorite to win it all next year, and you're getting roughly 10-1 odds on the Houston Rockets.
Sam, just so you know, that really annoys Tim when news anchors do that. They go, well, this just in. We're here. Now, nobody really does that anymore, but they used to do it back in the day. This just it. And they don't do it anymore. Staying in the state of Texas, Dallas adds D'Angelo Russell. Sam, what does this move mean for the Mavs here? Now they're going to get somebody to fill in while Kyrie Irving is recovering.
Yeah, they signed a substitute teacher, right? That's all they're trying to do. They're hoping Kyrie Irving can be back in February, March, be ready for the playoffs. D'Angelo Russell is a great regular season stopgap, somebody who can eat some innings for you, get some, help your offense stay afloat in the regular season while Kyrie's out. But then he goes to the bench when Kyrie's back. He's had so many playoff struggles that this is almost a relief to him now, right? He doesn't have to be relied upon to carry the offense in those high leverage moments in the playoffs. So it's a nice fit. I still have a lot of questions about that roster. It's very unbalanced. It's way too big. Not enough dribbling, not enough shooting. But they did about as well with the resources at their disposal as we could have reasonably expected.
D'Angelo Russell needs to take a screenshot of that full screen that he is up there with 3 Hall of Famers, because last year, his year in Brooklyn was awful. There's no other way to say it. He shot a terrible percentage from the field. He shot an awful percentage from 3. And at this point in his career, I think that he's headed in the wrong direction. To Sam's point, they need somebody. Kyrie's hurt, so they have to have somebody to bring the ball up. He's making $6 million a year. We're living in a world where Luke Cornett is getting $11 million a year, $10 million a year, and D'Angelo Russell is getting almost half of that. So I've said it once and I've said it again. I need a Hard Knocks for the Dallas Mavericks. I need a Netflix. I need a behind the scenes. You're bringing D'Angelo Russell in. You have the #1 pick. Is Anthony Davis going to be healthy? What's Klay Thompson at this point in his career? What's the timetable for Kyrie Irving? The Mavericks are not real contenders in the Western Conference, but oh my goodness, there's so much drama around them. They are must-see TV.
Can you imagine what it would be like if, let's say they get all the way to the Western Conference Finals next season, Tim? I mean, they get Cooper Flag. I mean, they essentially get a redo getting Cooper Flag and now adding pieces around Kyrie and AD.
I don't know why they're not leaning into this. I think the storylines are amazing there. I think Cooper's going to be the next face of the NBA. So whether, they traded Luka or whatever, knew it, wink, wink with the NBA draft, they got Cooper Flag. So is this going to automatically just translate to a lot of wins? I don't really know. I think this could, Akeem, be a disaster. I'm just going to throw that out there. Yeah, it could be. You got Kyrie Irving coming off a massive injury. You got Anthony Davis, who's never healthy. Klay Thompson is at the end of his career. This isn't like a paper. You actually have to play the games 5-on-5. That's why I think it's going to be so much must-see TV in Dallas.
Grizzlies are also trying to figure it out as we stay in the West. They had a very busy first day of free agency. Max extension for Jaren Jackson Jr., re-signed Santi Aldama, added Ty Jerome. John Morant on social media, happy to see his guys get paid. Sam, what'd you think about the moves that Memphis made here on Monday?
I like them, right? The idea of their offseason, they had 3 big contracts with Desmond Bane, John Morant, Jaren Jackson. They wanted to reconfigure their books in such a way that they had 2 expensive players. They have Morant, they have Jaren Jackson, but they do such a good job of drafting and developing young players that they felt like they could afford to let Bane go, rebuild around him, recreate him in the aggregate offensively. Ty Jerome was probably the best 6 man in the NBA last year. He didn't win the award because he didn't play enough minutes. I think that's going to be a great situation for him. They have a lot of depth there. Bringing back Santi Aldama was great bit of business. I really like everything they've done. Are they championship contenders? The answer is probably no, right? They've taken an overall step back in terms of talent, but they've added assets. They've gotten good players on reasonable contracts. Talk to me in a year or two. I'm pretty excited about where they're going.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a very, very, very good regular season team. Now, you see their starting 5. I think it's a very solid starting 5. But what made the Grizzlies really good last year was their depth and their bench. They went to their bench, and it was like sometimes you go to teams' bench, it's like this massive fall off. They had an outstanding bench. They shared the ball. Aldama's a guy that I think is going to be fantastic. When Aldama's coming off your bench, you have a really good squad. I think they need another wing scorer. I thought if Kevin Durant looked at all the teams in the NBA, Houston would be one. I thought Memphis would be too. They're missing a closer. Jaren Jackson Jr. is an amazing Robin. He's even better if he's your third guy. John Moran up and down, off the court, on the court. He can definitely, if he's going to be healthy. I think they're missing one key piece. And whether it's like a DeMar DeRozan, they need someone who makes tough shots in the playoffs. They don't have that. And Desmond Bane was not that. So I was okay to see him go from Memphis. Be interested to see what they're doing right now because Jaren Jackson Jr., they paid him, and he's the safe bet. But John Morant, you never know what you're going to get with that guy.
Free agency just beginning. Plenty of teams busy on day one. Sam Quinn, Tim Doyle breaking down the moves here on CBS Sports HQ. And speaking of moves, here's a look at the key dates to know in the NBA upcoming here. Teams can sign their free agents on July 6th. A few days later, the Vegas Summer League begins. We'll see the rookies. We'll see the youngsters get out there. You can count on CBS Sports HQ for complete NBA free agency coverage. When news breaks, we'll be here to break it down. And welcome back. CBS Sports NBA writer Sam Quinn and CBS Sports basketball analyst Tim Doyle here to talk winners and losers from day one of free agency. Sam, several teams had a good first day. Who's your biggest winner?
I love everything the Atlanta Hawks have done. Go back to earlier in the offseason, getting Porzingis, getting that great unprotected pick from the Pelicans. But you look at the players they added today. Perfect fits for what they're doing. They have all of this size and athleticism. They need a smaller guard defender. They get Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Very good shooter, can create a little bit on the ball, maybe play some backup point guard for them. Get Luke Kennard. Never hurts to have another great shooter. But I think the most important thing here, Trae Young recruited both of them actively. Trae Young, extension eligible this offseason. You go back to the trade deadline, there were rumors that he might want out of Atlanta. Now he's actively bringing players there. Not only did they improve the roster, it seems like the chemistry, the organization, everything is aligned. They figured out the formula to build around Trae Young, and I think they're moving in a perfect direction.
I'm not going in a team direction here. I'm going in a player direction. This is a golf clap. Congratulations to Luke Cornett. You averaged last season 6 points. You got $40 million over 4 years. Amazing. This is the biggest winner of them all. This guy's making over $10 million a year, and D'Angelo Russell's making around half, even though he's had a more storied career. He's bounced around the league. He's been on 5 different teams. For Boston last year, he played 73 games. He proved to be durable. But it's amazing to me, the guy's almost 30 years old. So you're like right towards the end of kind of your prime in my eyes in the NBA. I think you hit your prime right around 28, 29. Then you get to 30. It's like, 30, 31. But who cares? Okay, you got $40 billion. Awesome. Number one winner.
Yeah, you're right. Those are facts. That's a winner right there if you're getting a 4-year deal worth $41 million. All right, now for your biggest loser. Sam, who disappointed you on day one of NBA free agency?
Yeah, who's going to play center for the Celtics, right? I know we're joking about Luke Cornett and this big contract that he got. Well, if Luke Cornett is getting $40 million, how can Boston afford anybody, right? They're deep in the luxury tax. They ducked the second apron, but they don't have much room to spare. Al Horford's still out there. A lot of teams are after him. Basically, all of the older contenders want to bring in Al Horford next year. All Boston has done at center is get Luka Garza, who's played less than 1,000 minutes in the NBA. I truly don't know who is playing center for that team next season. I know it's not a championship or bust year with Jason Tatum out, but you kind of have to have all 5 positions filled out, right?
Yeah, and I was looking at their second-round pick, Sam, and I know they ended up trading it, but Ryan Kalkbrenner was on the board. And he was the guy who was 4-time Defensive Player of the Year at Creighton. I'm not saying that he's like a plug-and-play center, but they need a center, and they don't have one. My biggest loser in day one is the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, you got to look in the mirror. It's over. If you take Giannis off this roster, it's the worst team in the entire NBA. There's actually no team that's worse than them, all right? Now, look at all the people that they've re-signed. Kevin Porter Jr., no one wanted him in the NBA. He ends up on Milwaukee. Taurean Prince, you know, he was a guy, I think he's past his prime, or he's still kind of a role player. Everyone else, gone. You signed Gary Trent Jr., he's not keeping you around. Milwaukee needs to look San Antonio in the eye and say, Spurs, here's Giannis, but this is what we want in return. We want Stephon Castle. We want Dylan Harper. Let's trade straight up. Let's do that. I'm going to give you want a first-round pick? I know we can talk about some of that, but if I can get the second pick in the draft and the rookie of the year for Giannis right now, I'm making that deal.
Yeah, why would you make that deal? Would that work? When you talk about the numbers and the math, is that something that might work, Sam?
Well, if you can get some other salaries in there, you can make it work. Harrison Barnes would be a name to watch, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson. The Spurs have a lot of these mid-sized contracts that make making a trade like this possible. It's there. The Bucks just have to face the music, right?
Yeah.
They have to realize, even if you have Giannis, what do you have around him? What is the point of keeping a player this good if you can't actually win with him? I know they don't want to rebuild in a small market like that. I know they don't have their own picks. But there's just nothing else to be done here. You're going to be a 500 team until you come to this realization. And if you don't do it soon enough, he gets hurt, he gets older, he gets worse. Things could get a lot worse than trading for Dylan Harper and or Stephon Castle.
Milwaukee, we just made a deal for you. So if you'd like for either Tim or Sam to work out the financials, we're here. Just give us a call, CBS Sports HQ, 1-800-CBS Sports HQ. We get deals done for you. All right, plenty of names still on the board. They're looking for deals, including Miles Turner, DeAndre Ayton. Sam, who's your best available?
I have my eye on DeAndre Ayton here, right? We assume Miles Turner is going to stay in Indiana. So let's talk about somebody who's actually available here. DeAndre Ayton, one of the most interesting free agents of the offseason. He is so talented. #1 overall pick, was borderline a star in Phoenix. Indiana gave him that max contract that sent him back to Phoenix. The Suns matched it, but it has been all downhill over the last few years since he's gotten to Portland, and really at the end there in Phoenix, the defensive effort has been down. He's never been somebody who's wanted to, tangle in the paint, do the dirty work that centers need to do. But the talent is so tantalizing. You look at a team like the Lakers that loves bringing in these former first-round picks, loves to try to rehabilitate them, did really well with Rui Hachimura on that front. Maybe not so much with Jackson Hayes and with Cam Reddish, but that seems like a fit that makes a lot of sense. You put him next to Luka Doncic and LeBron, and you hope he can take things seriously. He can have stars setting him up for easy shots, and maybe finally he can take advantage of that prodigious talent that he has.
Yeah, and then finally the Lakers get a center. Remember that whole Mark Williams fiasco? Yep. And then, they ended up with nothing, and then they're starting Jackson Hayes, and that ended up being a nightmare there. I think Sam's pick is spot on. I want to throw someone at you because I think he's like one of the most polarizing players that you may not even follow in the NBA. His name is Cam Thomas. Now, he's a restricted free agent. It looks like the Nets are going to keep him in Brooklyn. But this is a guy, and I've called some of his games, Akeem. The guy could just flat out score.
Yep.
Can he do anything else? I'm not so sure. But, it's not easy just to, roll out of bed and get 25 in an NBA game. And that's what this guy does time and time and time again. So you're not a winning team if he's your starting point guard. But, man, I think he could be a fantastic player off the bench for a team that's like a real contender. Looks like the Nets are going to keep him, but he's a polarizing guy because they're like, oh, you can't win with them. It's hard to tell because he's only been on bad teams, but the guy can score in bunches.
All right, well, talking about the Knicks as we stay in New York there, the Knicks are going to get Jordan Clarkson once he clears waivers. He agreed to a buyout with the Jazz. Meantime, the Knicks are still looking for a head coach. They've had a second interview here with Mike Brown, and they think that they might like him here. I like him, former Cavaliers, Lakers, Kings head coach. Tim, do you like the potential hire for the Knicks as they bring him back for a second interview?
I think he's a lock to get the job. I said that last week. I saw once his name was being floated out there, Sam, amongst the Taylor Jenkins of the world. Michael Malone and the ownership of the Knicks do not see eye to eye. I thought he was going to be the ideal choice, but that has kind of fallen through and fizzled, and now his name is no longer mentioned there. Mike Brown has won. I know he had LeBron in Cleveland, but he kind of was given the Sacramento job. He was coach of the year out there. They fired him unceremoniously. I thought he totally got screwed. He deserves the job. I'd be totally fine with that, and I think that'd be a win for the Knicks.
Yeah, he's not going to fold under the pressure, right? Because he's coached LeBron James and he's coached Kobe Bryant. Madison Square Garden's going to be nothing in response to that. So I think it would be a pretty interesting hire. He's a very good defensive coach, one of the best defensive floor raisers, right? You give him bad defenders, he's going to figure out how to make the most of them. My questions are on offense, right? Some of his offenses with the Lakers, with the Cavs, kind of stale. He goes to Golden State, learns under Steve Kerr for several years, goes to Sacramento, and they immediately have the best offense in the NBA. things kind of went south from there. But I'm hoping that if you bring in Mike Brown with all of that offensive talent that the Knicks have, now maybe you can get a little bit more creative, get the most of that talent there, and maybe could you use the bench? Because Tom Thibodeau didn't. They just signed Jordan Clarkson. They're hoping they're going to have a deeper roster next year. If they do, I think Mike Brown would be a pretty good coach to try to get the most of it.
A ready-made roster to win again. The Knicks have the shortest odds to win the Eastern Conference, so they are the favorites in the East ahead of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tim Doyle, Sam Quinn, biggest winners and losers here on CBS Sports HQ. Men, thank you. And here's a look at the odds to win next season's title. And the Knicks are right there, plus 900 to win it all. The Thunder at plus 250 to repeat. Haven't had a repeat champion since the Warriors in 2017 and 2018.